Digital entertainment on demand proudly brings you the Super 600 from round 4 of the SuperGP Champions Trophy. And as the Super 600 Brat Pack headed into turn 1, it was the Neolife Racing powered by Yamaha rider Stephen Undal that took the whole shot. But unfortunately, look at that! Blaze Baker just took to the sideline and headed to the actual N4 as opposed to the N4 of the main straight here at Redstar. It put him right at the back of the field of 10 riders, and Blaze Baker would have to do some immense riding to get through. Rudman started well and started to fight things out with the new M-Tech Yamaha rider, and Darian Kaiser making a welcome return unfortunately wasn't loving life at the Redstar Raceway, a circuit that historically has been very good to the young man. At the front, it was all about Adolf Boshoff, Stephen Udendal, Michael White, and of course the new M-Tech Yamaha rider there, and problems for Rudman, as I was talking about Shelley sneaking through up into 4th place. Rudman going down, just pushing ever so slightly harder than what he liked to try and get up to the 4 riders that were fighting for honours at the front. In and out, chopping and changing every single time they got to a corner. Michael White sneaking through and trying to make it Kawasaki's 1 and 2, and then the Yamahas came back at them and came back in full force. The Tuning Forks versus Kawasaki was the battle that everybody was watching on the stands, and big crowds coming to watch all the action here at Redstar. Out of portable shade, the move went up the inside and was all about Adolf Boshoff. He eventually got to the front end, and as he did so, opened the door for Shelley. Shelley snuck through, and that didn't take him long to go from 2nd right up to 1st. Boshoff would now have to fight back for the honours of the number 1 podium spot. Speaking of number 1s, sneaking in and out those Kawasaki's and Yamahas was the number 1 rider, Stephen Udendal, eventually being demoted down to 4th place. It was the lowest he'd been all race, and had to do some work now to find his way past on Mike White and on Shelley. That's all that needed to happen with Anthony Shelley, and as they crossed the line, it was Adolf Boshoff who came to win things out, making it Kawasaki's 1 and 2 with Michael White there, and the first of the Yamahas being Stephen Udendal in a lowly 3rd place. He was on the podium, but he had some work to do for race number 2. In race 2 was more of the same from the Pocket Rocket. Stephen Udendal had earned that name on previous manufacturers he raced for, and eventually had got to grips on how to start the Yamaha. He was followed into turn 1, the Redstar Raceway chicane, by a fellow Yamaha mounted rider, Anthony Shelley, on the M-Tech Nashua Yamaha. Right on their tail were the 2 Kawasaki's. Speaking of Kawasaki's, unfortunately, Malcolm Rudman and Darian Kaiser, yet again in race number 2, having some issues and going dirt tracking. Not the way they'd planned the day for round 4. At the front, though, the battle continued. Epic stuff here amongst the Kawasaki's and Yamaha riders. Adolf Boshoff looking for a double victory on the day. Udendal looking to capitalize and try and find some valuable points due to the fact that he had a DNF at the previous round and he'd already only scored a 3rd place on the podium. You could see just how close things were getting. Adolf Boshoff coming side by side and eventually getting out of the saddle, allowing Michael White to sneak through and be the lead Kawasaki. The 2 Yamahas, and eventually Shelley showing them the way around. A Redstar Raceway specialist is Anthony Shelley, and eventually it was just between the 2 Yamahas. Adolf Boshoff, with those tyre problems, just fell by the wayside ever so slightly, but he wasn't done and dusted just yet. The in-house battle between the 2 Yamahas and the 2nd Kawasaki was starting to slow them down, and Boshoff could smell blood in the water. It had a bit of a near-life taste to it, and the M-Tech Racing team even capitalized on that opportunity, opening up the door and looking for a way through. Shelley had about a lap and a half to try and keep them at bay. Fortunately, it was in and out, chop and change, 2nd to 1st, 1st to 2nd, and the 4 riders at the front end must have changed positions at least 40 times every single time they lapped around Redstar Raceway. Into the dying and closing stages of race number 2, and eventually Pooch managed to keep it at the front end and beat his Yamaha stablemate and Adolf Boshoff to the line for the final podium in the Super 600s. So Stephen Udendal heads into the next round at Port Elizabeth at Aldo Scribanti with a fine lead in the championship. But